The blazing sun cast long shadows across Riverton, Wyoming territory, as Olivia Palmer clutched her manuscript to her chest, fighting back tears that threatened to spill onto the ink-stained pages she'd labored over for months. The year was 1878, and in this dusty frontier town, a woman with literary ambitions might as well have been chasing tumbleweeds. But Olivia had never been one to surrender her dreams easily, not even when the entire saloon erupted in laughter at her expense. A female writer. Penning tales of the frontier, Bartholomew Jenkins, the saloon owner, had bellowed, snatching her pages and reading aloud in a mocking falsetto. What could a woman possibly know about the true West? The men around him roared with laughter, pounding their fists against wooden tables as Olivia's words, her heart laid bare on those pages, were ridiculed mercilessly. Now, as she hurried down Riverton's main street, the wooden boardwalk creaking beneath her boots, Olivia could still hear their jeers echoing in her mind. Her fingers tightened around her manuscript until the pages crumpled slightly, matching the wrinkles of disappointment etching themselves across her heart. "Miss, you dropped this," a deep voice called from behind. Olivia turned to see a tall figure silhouetted against the setting sun. As he approached, his features came into focus, weathered skin bronzed by years under open skies, intelligent green eyes, and a bearing that spoke of quiet strength. His clothes were dusty from the trail, but there was something dignified in the way he held himself. "One of your pages," he said, extending a hand that held a sheet of her precious manuscript. "Thank you," Olivia murmured, quickly tucking it back into her bundle. She brushed a strand of auburn hair from her face, hoping he hadn't read enough to join in the mockery. "The writing's quite good," he said unexpectedly, removing his hat and revealing thick chestnut hair that curled slightly at his collar. "Caught a few lines before I realized it wasn't mine to read." Olivia studied him cautiously. At 24, she'd learned to be wary of men's false compliments, especially in a frontier town where women were still something of a rarity. "I'm Adam Rushford," he continued, placing his hat back atop his head. "Just rode into town." "Olivia Palmer," she replied, her voice carrying more confidence than she felt. "And I appreciate your kindness, Mr. Rushford, but I've had my fill of opinions about my writing today." Adam's expression shifted, curiosity evident in his gaze. "Bad day at the publishers," he guessed. Olivia laughed bitterly. "Riverton doesn't have a publisher. I made the mistake of sharing my work at Jenkins' saloon. Seems the very idea of a woman writing frontier tales is the funniest joke these parts have heard in years." Adam frowned, glancing toward the saloon where raucous laughter still spilled into the street. "Some folks can't see past their own limited thinking. May I ask what your story's about?" Something in his sincere interest gave Olivia pause. Most men in Riverton dismissed her immediately, a spinster schoolteacher who'd arrived from Boston 2 years ago with dreams bigger than the Wyoming sky. "It's about a woman who disguises herself as a man to track down her father's killers," Olivia found herself explaining. "She discovers truths about the West and herself along the way." Adam nodded thoughtfully. "Sounds more honest than half the dime novels I've read. Those writers have never even seen a real six-shooter, let alone the frontier." "You've read dime novels." Olivia couldn't hide her surprise. Most cowboys she'd encountered could barely read trail signs, let alone literature. "Man gets lonely on cattle drives," Adam said with a slight smile. "Books make good company. Been reading since I was a boy." A loud commotion from the saloon interrupted them as several drunken men spilled onto the street. One pointed in Olivia's direction and nudged his companion, both of them dissolving into fresh laughter. Adam noticed her flinch and frowned. "They laughed at your story," he observed, his voice lowering to a whisper as he leaned closer. "Then I'll write a new ending." Olivia blinked in confusion. "What do you mean?" "I mean those fools don't deserve to be the final chapter of your day," Adam replied, gesturing down the street. "I was heading to get some supper at the hotel restaurant. Would you join me? I'd like to hear more about your writing." Olivia hesitated. Dining alone with a man she just met would set tongues wagging all over Riverton. Then again, her reputation was already in tatters after her literary debacle. And there was something about Adam Rushford that intrigued her, a thoughtfulness in his eyes that seemed genuine. "I suppose I could eat," she conceded, surprising herself. As they walked side by side toward the Riverton Hotel, Olivia couldn't help wondering what kind of new ending this mysterious cowboy might write. Little did she know that their chance meeting on a dusty Wyoming street was just the first page of a story far more compelling than any she'd put to paper. The Riverton Hotel's dining room was modest by Eastern standards, but it was the finest establishment in town, with actual tablecloths and a piano in the corner that occasionally produced music on Saturday nights. Several heads turned as Olivia entered with Adam, curious stares following them to a table near the window. "Everyone's watching," Olivia murmured as she settled into her chair. "Let them," Adam replied, unperturbed. "Folks out here are starved for entertainment." Two people sharing a meal shouldn't qualify. A waiter approached, eyeing Adam's trail-worn clothes with slight disdain until Adam ordered a bottle of their best wine. The man's demeanor shifted instantly. "You're not from Riverton," Olivia observed after they'd ordered their meals. "It wasn't a question. Just passing through," Adam confirmed, his fingers idly turning his water glass. "Or got a telegram in Cheyenne about a property matter here that needs attending." "Property? In Riverton?" Olivia's curiosity piqued. "My uncle passed last month. Left me his ranch about 10 miles north of here. Never even met the man, truth be told." Adam's expression was difficult to read. "Apparently, we were his only living kin. My younger brother and I. He's finishing business in Colorado and will join me later." Adam looked up, meeting her eyes directly. "But enough about my affairs. Tell me more about this story that's caused such a stir." Olivia hesitated. Years of ridicule had taught her caution, but something in Adam's steady gaze encouraged honesty. "I've been working on it for almost a year," she admitted. "Teaching at the schoolhouse doesn't leave much time for writing, but I manage a few hours each evening. It's more than just a revenge tale. It explores how the West changes people, how it strips away pretenses." "Like your protagonist disguising herself as a man?" Adam asked. "Yes, but the disguise becomes more than just a costume. She discovers freedom she never knew existed for men, the ability to speak one's mind, to travel alone, to be judged by actions rather than appearance." Olivia felt heat rising to her cheeks. "I suppose that sounds terribly progressive." "It sounds honest," Adam replied. "The West may be wild, but it's also a place where people can reinvent themselves. I've seen women running ranches, businesses, even a stagecoach station. Not everyone accepts it, but it happens." Their food arrived, hearty beef stew with fresh bread, momentarily pausing their conversation. Olivia watched Adam covertly as he ate. Despite his trail-worn appearance, his manners were impeccable. There was something about him that didn't quite fit the typical cowboy mold. "How does your story end?" Adam asked after they'd eaten in companionable silence for a few minutes. Olivia hesitated. "It doesn't. Not yet. I keep rewriting the ending, but nothing feels right." "The best stories are like that," Adam said thoughtfully. "Too neat an ending feels false. Life rarely ties up so conveniently." "That's precisely it," Olivia exclaimed, then lowered her voice when nearby diners glanced their way. "I want it to feel authentic, not like those dime novels where the villain is shot, the girl is saved, and everyone lives happily ever after." "So what happens to your heroine when her quest is complete?" Adam asked. "That's the question I'm struggling with. Does she keep living as a man? Return to society as a woman? Can she ever truly go back to being who she was?" Olivia sighed. "And then there's the romantic element." Adam raised an eyebrow. "There's a love interest, a rancher who discovers her secret but keeps it anyway." Olivia couldn't meet Adam's eyes suddenly. "He appreciates her strength, her determination. He sees her, truly sees her when no one else does." A moment of silence stretched between them, filled with something Olivia couldn't quite name. Finally, Adam spoke. "Your critics at the saloon, they're not the audience you're writing for." "Pardon?" "You're writing for people who understand what it means to create yourself out of nothing but grit and hope. That's what the West is really about." Adam's voice had grown passionate. Not just men with guns, but people, men and women carving something meaningful from wilderness. Olivia studied him, suddenly seeing beyond the dusty clothes and trail-weathered skin. "You're not just a cowboy, are you, Mr. Rushford?" Adam's smile was enigmatic. "Out here, we're all many things. I've punched cattle and read Shakespeare under the stars. I've tracked outlaws and written poetry no one will ever read." "You write." Olivia couldn't mask her surprise. "Words help make sense of things," he said simply. "Not that I dare call myself a writer. That takes a special kind of courage." Their conversation continued long after their plates were cleared. Ranging from books they'd both read to places they'd traveled. Adam described cattle drives through territories Olivia had only read about, while she shared stories of Boston's literary circles and her journey west to take the teaching position in Riverton. "My parents thought I'd gone mad," she admitted. "A single woman of 22 traveling alone to Wyoming territory. They were certain I'd be scalped by Indians or worse. And yet here you are, intact and writing frontier tales," Adam observed with admiration. "Much to the town's dismay," Olivia replied wryly. "Riverton expected a proper spinster schoolmarm. Instead, they got me." As the evening deepened, Olivia became increasingly aware of how easy it was to talk with Adam, how he listened intently, asked thoughtful questions, and never once made her feel that her opinions were less valuable because of her gender. It was a novel experience. When they finally left the hotel, the stars had emerged in full glory, painting the Wyoming sky with diamond light. Adam insisted on walking her to her modest home near the schoolhouse. "Thank you for the meal," Olivia said as they reached her small porch. "And for the conversation, it was unexpected. The best things usually are," Adam replied. He paused, seeming to deliberate before continuing. "I'd like to read your entire manuscript if you'd permit it. I promise a fair assessment, not mockery." Olivia hesitated. The manuscript was deeply personal, despite its fictional nature. Sharing it felt like baring her soul. "I understand if you refuse," Adam added quickly. "Trust isn't given lightly out here." "No, it isn't," Olivia agreed. Then, making a sudden decision, she extended the bundle of papers she'd been clutching all evening. "But perhaps it's time I took a risk." Adam accepted the manuscript with careful hands. "I'll return it tomorrow with my thoughts, good or bad." "I appreciate honesty more than false praise," Olivia warned. "Then honesty you'll have," he promised. He tipped his hat slightly. "Good night, Miss Palmer. Thank you for making a stranger's evening considerably brighter." As Adam walked away, his tall figure gradually dissolving into the darkness of Riverton's main street, Olivia stood motionless on her porch. She had just entrusted her precious manuscript to a man she'd known for mere hours. It was either the most foolish decision she'd made since coming west, or the beginning of something she couldn't yet name. Either way, she suspected that Adam Rushford might indeed be writing a new ending not just to this day, but perhaps to her story as well. The next morning dawned with Olivia immediately regretting her impulsiveness. What had possessed her to hand over her manuscript to a complete stranger? Adam Rushford could be halfway to Cheyenne by now, her precious pages serving as kindling for his campfire. Or worse, he might be at Jenkins' saloon reading select passages to uproarious laughter. She dressed hurriedly for school, her stomach knotted with anxiety. The schoolhouse was only a short walk from her small house, a one-room building that served the 23 children of Riverton. As she approached, she noticed a figure sitting on the steps, Adam, her manuscript resting on his knee. "You're up early," she remarked, trying to sound casual despite the relief flooding through her. "Never much of a sleeper," he replied, rising. Dark circles beneath his eyes suggested he hadn't slept at all. "Besides, I wanted to return this before you began your teaching day." He handed over the manuscript, now neatly tied with a fresh piece of string. Olivia took it, searching his face for any indication of his thoughts. "And?" she asked, unable to wait. "And I think you've written something remarkable," Adam said simply. Olivia blinked, certain she'd misheard. "You enjoyed it?" "Enjoyed isn't quite the right word," Adam replied thoughtfully. "It challenged me, made me think. Your protagonist, Catherine, her journey feels genuine. Her struggles, her confusion about who she is versus who society expects her to be. It's powerful writing, Miss Palmer." Warmth spread through Olivia's chest at his words. "You truly mean that." "I do." Adam's expression was earnest. There are some rough patches, certainly. The section where Catherine learns to shoot could use more authentic detail, and the cattle rustling scene has some technical inaccuracies. But those are mere details. The heart of your story, that's what matters, and its heart beats strong. Olivia clutched the manuscript tighter, afraid she might start weeping from sheer relief and joy. Someone had read her work, truly read it, and found value in it. I took the liberty of making some notes, Adam continued, gesturing to the manuscript. Nothing major, just suggestions about the frontier elements. Feel free to disregard them entirely. No, I welcome the input, Olivia said quickly. Especially from someone who's actually lived the experiences I'm trying to describe. Adam smiled slightly. I should let you get to your students. But I wondered if you might be free this afternoon. I'm heading out to see my uncle's ranch, and I thought perhaps you might like to come along. The landscape might inspire your writing. Olivia hesitated. Riding alone with a man she barely knew was highly improper. Then again, propriety hadn't gained her much in Riverton. I finished teaching at 3, she heard herself say. I'll have horses ready at the livery by 3:30, Adam replied, his smile widening. Wear something practical for riding. As he walked away, Olivia realized she was smiling too, perhaps the first genuine smile since yesterday's humiliation at the saloon. She glanced down at her manuscript, noticing a small piece of paper sticking out from between the pages. Pulling it free, she found a handwritten note. Those who laugh at dreams do so because they've forgotten how to dream themselves. Your story deserves to be told. A.R. The simple words caused her throat to tighten with emotion. Tucking both manuscript and note into her satchel, Olivia straightened her shoulders and entered the schoolhouse, determined to focus on her teaching duties, despite the anticipation bubbling inside her for the afternoon ahead. The school day crawled by with agonizing slowness. Olivia found herself glancing repeatedly at the clock as she guided her students through reading lessons and arithmetic. The older children noticed her distraction, exchanging curious glances when she inadvertently called young Timothy by the wrong name twice. When the final bell rang at 3 o'clock, Olivia dismissed her students with perhaps more haste than usual. She hurried home to change, discarding her formal teaching clothes for a practical split riding skirt and sturdy blouse attire that had scandalized Riverton when she'd first worn it shortly after her arrival. By 3:20, Olivia was approaching the livery stable, her heart fluttering with an excitement she hadn't felt in months. Adam was already there, speaking with old Samuel Hawkins, the livery owner. 2 horses stood saddled nearby, Adam's own chestnut gelding and a gentle-looking bay mare. Miss Palmer, Adam greeted her, his eyes warming as he took in her practical riding attire. I see you came prepared. I've found that frontier life requires adaptability, she replied, approaching the mare cautiously. She's beautiful. Daisy's gentle but sure-footed, Samuel interjected, handing Olivia the reins. Not like them spirited horses Mr. Rushford here usually favors, Adam chuckled. Maverick and I understand each other, he said, patting his chestnut's neck. Wild recognizes wild. The easy declaration sent an unexpected thrill through Olivia. There was something undeniably attractive about a man comfortable with his own nature. After helping Olivia mount his hands respectfully firm at her waist, Adam swung into his own saddle with practiced grace. They set off at a leisurely pace, heading north out of Riverton toward the foothills where Adam's unexpected inheritance lay. As they left the town behind, Olivia felt tension she hadn't even realized she was carrying begin to melt away. The Wyoming landscape opened before them, vast grasslands dotted with sagebrush, rolling toward distant mountains whose peaks still bore traces of winter snow despite the spring warmth. It's breathtaking, Olivia murmured, drinking in the scenery. I've been here 2 years and still find myself awestruck by the sheer scale of everything. That never changes, Adam said, riding alongside her. I've crossed these territories dozens of times and still find new wonders. The West isn't just a place, it's a living entity. You speak like a writer, Olivia observed, studying his profile against the vast blue sky. Adam smiled slightly. Maybe in another life. In this one, I've been too busy staying alive to put much to paper. "What have you done?" Olivia asked, realizing how little she knew about the man beside her. "Before inheriting the ranch, I mean." "A bit of everything," Adam replied, his eyes scanning the horizon habitually. "Drove cattle from Texas to Montana, scouted for the army for a spell, tried my hand at silver mining in Colorado, worked as a ranch foreman in Arizona Territory." "A true wanderer," Olivia remarked. "I prefer to think of it as having diverse interests," Adam countered with a grin. "The frontier rewards adaptability, as you said yourself. What about you? What brought a Boston-educated woman to Riverton, Wyoming?" Olivia considered the question, which went deeper than its simple phrasing suggested. "Freedom, I suppose," she finally answered. "In Boston, my path was predetermined: teach at a ladies' academy, marry a suitable gentleman if one would have a bookish woman with unfashionable ideas, live within carefully prescribed boundaries. And here, I'm still confined in many ways. A woman alone faces limitations everywhere. But the sky is bigger, the possibilities seem less impossible." She glanced at him. "Does that sound foolish?" "Not at all," Adam replied seriously. "It's why many of us came west, not just for land or gold, but for the chance to rewrite our stories." They rode in companionable silence for a while, the rhythmic swaying of the horses lulling Olivia into a peaceful state. After about an hour, they crested a gentle rise, and Adam reined in his mount. "There it is," he said, pointing toward a cluster of buildings nestled in a verdant valley. A creek wound through the property, its waters glinting in the afternoon sun. "The Flying R Ranch, apparently mine now." Olivia studied the scene before her. The ranch wasn't large by Wyoming standards, but it was substantial: a main house, bunkhouse, barn, and various outbuildings. Cattle dotted the surrounding pastures, and a small apple orchard stood near the house, trees beginning to show spring blossoms. "It's lovely," she said sincerely. "Your uncle built something beautiful here." "From what the lawyer told me, he worked this land for 30 years, Adam replied, something like respect in his voice. "Started with nothing but a claim and a dream." They urged their horses down the slope toward the ranch. As they approached, a figure emerged from the barn, a middle-aged man with a weathered face who regarded them with cautious curiosity. "That must be Foreman Ellis," Adam said. "The lawyer mentioned he's been running things since my uncle's passing." Ellis watched their approach, his stance neither welcoming nor hostile, merely evaluating. When they reached the yard, Adam dismounted and approached with his hand extended. "Mr. Ellis, I'm Adam Rushford, Robert Rushford's nephew." Ellis studied Adam for a long moment before accepting the handshake. "We wondered when you'd show," he said gruffly. "Your uncle spoke of you, though he never expected you'd come claim the place." "I didn't know he existed until the lawyer's letter found me," Adam admitted. "This is Miss Olivia Palmer, Riverton's schoolteacher." Ellis tipped his hat to Olivia. "Madam, heard good things about how you're educating the town's youngsters." Olivia nodded in acknowledgement, surprised by the recognition. "Thank you, Mr. Ellis. Would you show us around?" Adam asked. "I'd like to understand what my uncle built here." Ellis nodded, his expression softening slightly. "He'd have wanted that. Come on then." The next 2 hours were spent touring the Flying R. Ellis proved to be knowledgeable and thorough, explaining the ranch operations with the efficiency of a man who devoted his life to the land. The ranch ran about 300 head of cattle, maintained a small horse breeding operation, and was nearly self-sufficient with its vegetable gardens and orchard. The main house was modest but solidly built, with 4 bedrooms, a study lined with bookshelves, and a kitchen large enough for a proper cooking staff. Throughout the tour, Olivia noticed signs of a cultured mind, books of poetry alongside practical ranching manuals, a decent piano in the parlor, artwork that suggested travel beyond Wyoming's borders. "Your uncle was an educated man," she remarked as they examined the study. "College man," Ellis confirmed. "Read every night of his life, said a mind needs tending same as land." Adam ran his fingers along the book spines, pausing at a collection of Shakespeare. "Seems we might have gotten along had we met." As sunset approached, Ellis insisted they stay for supper. "Road back to town's no place to be after dark," he said firmly. Ranch cook makes a decent meal, and we've plenty of room. Olivia knew she should refuse spending the night at a ranch alone with Adam would set Riverton's gossip mill churning at unprecedented speeds. But the thought of riding back in darkness was equally unappealing. I really should return, she began. We have a housekeeper in residence, Ellis interrupted, accurately reading her concern. Mrs. Holloway, proper as they come, your reputation would be safe enough. Adam looked to Olivia. It's your decision. We could make it back before full dark if we left now, though it would be a hard ride. Olivia hesitated, weighing propriety against practicality. If Mrs. Holloway doesn't mind the imposition, she'll be pleased to have another woman around, Ellis assured her. Gets tired of nothing but cowboy talk, she says. And so it was decided. A messenger was sent to town with a note for the school board explaining that Miss Palmer would return in the morning due to unexpected travel delays. Olivia found herself seated at a long oak table in the ranch house dining room as night fell, sharing a hearty meal with Adam, Ellis, Mrs. Holloway, a round-faced woman with sharp eyes and a sharper tongue, and 3 of the ranch hands. The conversation flowed easily, touching on cattle prices, local politics, and the coming spring roundup. Olivia watched Adam throughout the meal, noting how naturally he engaged with the men, asking intelligent questions and listening carefully to their answers. It was clear the ranch hands were taking his measure, deciding whether this stranger deserved to step into their late employer's boots. After supper, Mrs. Holloway showed Olivia to a comfortable bedroom while Adam remained downstairs, deep in conversation with Ellis about the ranch's finances. Alone in the unfamiliar room, Olivia moved to the window and gazed out at the Wyoming night, stars blazing with an intensity never visible in Boston's skies. The day's events seemed almost dreamlike. Yesterday, she'd been humiliated before half the town. Today, she'd ridden across the frontier with a man who respected her mind and writing, explored a beautiful ranch, and now found herself contemplating possibilities she'd never imagined. A soft knock at her door interrupted her reverie. Opening it, she found Mrs. Holloway bearing a nightgown and robe. Thought you might need these, the housekeeper said, handing over the folded garments. Belonged to Mr. Rushford's sister when she visited last summer. Thank you, Olivia said gratefully. You're very kind, Mrs. Holloway studied her thoughtfully. Don't often see Mr. Ellis take to strangers, but he seems to approve of your Mr. Rushford. He's not my Mr. Rushford, Olivia corrected quickly. The older woman's eyes twinkled. If you say so, dear. Though I haven't missed how he looks at you when he thinks no one's watching. Heat rushed to Olivia's cheeks. We only met yesterday. Some things don't need much time, Mrs. Holloway replied enigmatically. This house has been waiting for the right people. Perhaps they've arrived. With that cryptic statement, she bid Olivia good night and departed, leaving the schoolteacher to ponder her words. Changing into the borrowed nightclothes, Olivia found herself wondering what Adam was thinking downstairs. Was he contemplating staying at the Flying R? And if he did, what might that mean for their newfound friendship? Sleep came slowly that night, her mind too filled with new possibilities to easily surrender to rest. Morning arrived with golden light streaming through unfamiliar curtains. For a moment, Olivia was disoriented, then remembered she was at the Flying R Ranch. She dressed quickly in yesterday's riding clothes and made her way downstairs, following the scent of coffee and bacon to the kitchen. Adam was already there, seated at the kitchen table with Ellis, both men poring over ledgers and maps. He looked up as she entered, his face brightening. Good morning, he greeted her, rising. I trust you slept well. Very well, thank you, Olivia replied, accepting the cup of coffee Mrs. Holloway pressed into her hands. We need to start back soon if you're to reach the schoolhouse by your usual time, Adam said. Ellis has kindly offered to have one of the hands ride along with us, then bring Daisy back afterward. Olivia nodded, somewhat disappointed their adventure was ending so quickly. After a hearty breakfast, they bid farewell to the ranch staff, with Ellis extracting a promise from Adam to return soon for a more thorough discussion of ranch matters. The ride back to Riverton was quieter than their journey out, both of them seemingly lost in private thoughts. Olivia wondered what Adam was contemplating, whether he was considering claiming his unexpected inheritance, or would soon ride away from Wyoming forever. As they neared town, Adam finally broke the contemplative silence. "Thank you for accompanying me yesterday. Seeing the ranch through your eyes helped me appreciate it differently." "It's a special place," Olivia replied honestly. "Your uncle created something worth preserving." Adam nodded slowly. "I think I'll stay a while, see if ranching might suit me better than wandering." Joy flickered through Olivia at his words, though she tried to temper her reaction. "Riverton will be glad for the business another ranch brings." "And you?" Adam asked, his gaze direct. "Will you be glad for another neighbor?" The question hung between them, weighted with meaning beyond its simple words. Olivia felt her cheeks warm. "I believe I would," she admitted softly. Adam's smile was warm enough to chase away the morning chill. "I've been thinking about your manuscript," he said, changing topics. "About the ending you're struggling with. And do you have suggestions, Mr. Rushford?" Olivia asked, grateful for the shift to safer ground. "Just one." "Perhaps your heroine doesn't need to choose between her two lives, the one society prescribed for her and the one she discovered for herself. Perhaps she could create something entirely new." Olivia considered this, the writer in her immediately seeing narrative possibilities. A third option. Neither returning to her old constraints nor continuing her disguise, but forging a new path. "Exactly," Adam nodded, looking pleased. "The frontier isn't just about what we leave behind, but what we build in its place." They reached the edge of town, where Riverton's buildings interrupted the sweeping grasslands. Reality reasserted itself as townsfolk turned to stare at their approach, eyes widening at the sight of the schoolteacher returning from an overnight absence in the company of the mysterious newcomer. Adam seemed to sense her sudden discomfort. "Hold your head high," he murmured. "You've done nothing wrong." "Riverton may not share that assessment," Olivia replied, already imagining the whispers that would follow her through town. "Then perhaps Riverton needs its perspectives broadened," Adam said with quiet determination. "Just like the characters in your story." They reached the schoolhouse with 15 minutes to spare before students would begin arriving. The ranch hand who had accompanied them waited discreetly at a distance as Adam helped Olivia dismount. "Thank you for everything," she said, suddenly shy. "The pleasure was mine," Adam replied. He hesitated, then added, "I'd like to call on you properly, Miss Palmer, with your permission." Olivia's heart quickened. "I'd like that very much, Mr. Rushford." "Until then," he said, tipping his hat. He mounted his horse and rode away, the ranch hand following with Daisy in tow. Olivia watched him go, a strange mixture of excitement and trepidation filling her. Whatever ending was being written, it certainly wasn't one she had anticipated when she'd walked into Jenkins' saloon 2 days ago with her manuscript and hopes in hand. The next 3 weeks transformed Olivia's life in ways she couldn't have imagined. Adam called on her frequently, sometimes bringing books from his uncle's extensive library that he thought might interest her, other times simply coming to walk with her after school hours. They discussed literature, philosophy, and Olivia's writing, which was progressing rapidly thanks to Adam's encouragement and practical frontier knowledge. Riverton noticed, of course. Whispers followed Olivia through town, some disapproving, others merely curious about the schoolteacher's surprising romance with the new ranch owner. For Adam had indeed decided to claim his inheritance, throwing himself into learning the ranching business with characteristic determination. "Ellis says I ask more questions than a 5-year-old," Adam admitted one evening as they sat on Olivia's porch. The setting sun painted the sky in breathtaking shades of orange and pink, casting a golden glow over his features. "You're a natural student," Olivia replied, enjoying the comfortable ease that had developed between them. "It's one of your most admirable qualities." Adam smiled, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "High praise from a teacher." "Speaking of teaching," Olivia said, "the school term ends in 2 weeks. I've been invited to lead a writer's workshop in Cheyenne during the summer break." "That's wonderful," Adam said, genuinely pleased. "Your talents should be recognized beyond Riverton." "It's only because Professor Matthews from the university read my story," Olivia reminded him. "The one you helped me revise." After their trip to the Flying R, Adam had spent several evenings helping Olivia refine her manuscript, offering insights about frontier life that lent authenticity to her narrative. With his encouragement, she'd submitted it to a literary magazine in Cheyenne, where Professor Matthews had taken notice of her unique voice. "I merely provided technical details," Adam demurred. "The heart of the story, its soul, that was all yours." Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Sheriff Collins, who approached Olivia's house with purposeful strides. The lawman nodded curtly to them both. "Evening, Miss Palmer, Mr. Rushford." His expression was grave. "Got some news you should know about." Adam straightened, instantly alert. "What's happened?" Telegram came through from Laramie. "Seems there's a gang moving this way. McLaughlin and his boys. They hit the bank in Medicine Bow yesterday, killed 2 people. Olivia gasped softly. While violence wasn't uncommon in Wyoming territory, it rarely touched Riverton directly. "I remember McLaughlin from my Army scouting days," Adam said, his expression darkening. "Mean piece of work." "You know him?" Collins asked sharply. "Know of him," Adam clarified. "He ran with the Cassidy outfit for a while before branching out on his own. Has a particular hatred for anyone in authority." Collins nodded grimly. "I'm organizing a town meeting tonight at the church. Wanted to make sure you both knew." After the sheriff departed, a troubled silence fell between them. Finally, Olivia spoke. "Will you attend the meeting?" Adam nodded slowly. "Though I doubt McLaughlin will target Riverton. It's too small to be worth his trouble." "Unless he's not after money," Olivia suggested. "You said he hates authority figures." Adam's expression grew concerned. "You're right. Sheriff Collins might be at risk." The town meeting that evening was well attended, Riverton's citizens filling the small church to capacity. Olivia sat beside Adam near the front as Sheriff Collins outlined the potential threat and precautions the town should take. Volunteers were sought for a night watch, and Adam was among the first to step forward. As they walked home afterward, the night air cool around them, Olivia couldn't shake her unease. "I wish you hadn't volunteered," she admitted softly. Adam took her hand, his warm fingers entwining with hers. It was the first time he'd done so, and despite her worry, Olivia felt a thrill at the contact. "I have experience with men like McLaughlin," he said gently. "The town needs that knowledge. Just—" Olivia hesitated, then continued, "Just be careful, please." Adam stopped walking, turning to face her fully beneath the star-studded Wyoming sky. "Olivia," he said, her given name sounding like a caress in his deep voice, "I have every intention of being extremely careful. I've recently discovered something worth staying alive for." Her breath caught at the intensity in his gaze. Slowly, giving her every opportunity to pull away, Adam leaned down. His lips met hers in a kiss so tender it made her heart ache. Olivia's hands moved of their own accord, one resting against his chest where she could feel his heartbeat, the other lifting to touch his cheek. When they parted, Adam rested his forehead against hers. "I've wanted to do that since I first saw you clutching your manuscript on Main Street," he confessed. "I wish you hadn't waited so long," Olivia whispered back. Adam chuckled softly. "I needed to be sure you saw me as more than just a reader for your story." "I see you, Adam Rushford," Olivia said, the words feeling like a vow. "I see all of you." He kissed her again, more firmly this time, his arms encircling her waist. When they finally continued toward her house, they walked hand in hand, both aware that something fundamental had shifted between them. Neither realized they were being watched from the shadows by a figure whose gaze held nothing but malice. The McLaughlin gang arrived in Riverton 3 days later, not with the thunder of hooves and gunfire as many had feared, but quietly, infiltrating the town in ones and twos. By the time Sheriff Collins realized what was happening, armed men had already positioned themselves strategically around the main street. Olivia was in the schoolhouse, conducting final examinations for her older students when the first shots rang out. She immediately ordered the children to take cover beneath their desks, her own heart pounding as she tried to determine what was happening outside. Across town, Adam had been at the general store when the shooting started. He'd instantly recognized the coordinated nature of the attack and slipped out the back. intent on reaching the sheriff's office where he knew extra weapons were stored. He never made it. Two of McLaughlin's men intercepted him in the alley behind the mercantile, and though Adam managed to disarm one, the second caught him with a blow to the head that sent him sprawling into unconsciousness. When he awoke, he found himself tied to a chair in Jenkins' saloon, which the gang had commandeered as their headquarters. Blinking blood from his eyes, Adam took stock of the situation. 10 men at least, heavily armed, with McLaughlin himself seated at a table near the bar, calmly eating steak and potatoes as if he were a paying customer. "Rushford's awake," one of the men called out. McLaughlin looked up from his meal, studying Adam with cold eyes. He was older than Adam remembered, nearing 50, with iron gray hair and a scar that pulled his mouth into a permanent sneer. "Adam Rushford," McLaughlin said, wiping his mouth with a napkin. "Heard you was scouting for the army during that business in the Black Hills." "That was a long time ago," Adam replied, testing his bonds discreetly. "Not so long I forgot," McLaughlin countered, standing to approach him. "You led them soldiers right to our camp. 5 good men died that day." "They were rustling army horses and killing settlers," Adam said evenly. "Hardly good men." The backhand caught him by surprise, snapping his head to the side with enough force to make his ears ring. "You always did have a mouth on you," McLaughlin growled. "Let's see if we can put it to better use." He turned to one of his men. "Bring the schoolteacher. Rushford here's going to help us negotiate with this town." Cold dread washed through Adam. "Leave her out of this. She's got nothing to do with our history." McLaughlin smiled unpleasantly. "But she means something to you. That makes her valuable to me." Before Adam could respond, the saloon doors burst open, and 2 gang members dragged Olivia inside. Her hair had come loose from its usual neat arrangement, and there was a smudge of dirt on her cheek, but her eyes blazed with defiance. When she saw Adam tied to the chair, blood trickling from a cut above his eye, her expression flickered with concern before hardening again. "Let the children go," she demanded, addressing McLaughlin directly. "You have me. They're no threat to you." McLaughlin studied her with new interest. "Got spine, this one. The children are locked in the schoolhouse, madam. They'll stay there until our business is concluded." "Which is what, exactly?" Olivia asked, her voice steadier than Adam would have believed possible under the circumstances. "Simple. This town's going to provision us, provide fresh horses, and hand over whatever cash the bank's holding. Then we'll be on our way." McLaughlin gestured to Adam. "Your friend here's insurance against any heroics from the locals." "And my role in this?" Olivia questioned. "Insurance against him trying anything stupid," McLaughlin replied with a cruel smile. "I know his type. Would risk his own neck without thinking, but not if it means putting a lady in danger." Adam met Olivia's gaze across the room, trying to convey both reassurance and warning. She gave him an almost imperceptible nod. She understood the stakes. The next hours passed in tense negotiation, with Sheriff Collins, who had barricaded himself, and several deputies in the jail refusing to surrender to McLaughlin's demands. The outlaw grew increasingly frustrated, eventually dragging Adam out onto the saloon's porch where he could be seen from the sheriff's office. "Last chance, Collins," McLaughlin shouted. "Surrender now or Rushford gets a bullet." Inside the saloon, Olivia had been left under the guard of the youngest gang member, barely more than a boy, nervous and clearly uncomfortable with holding a woman captive. She'd spent the time engaging him in conversation, gently probing for information while establishing a rapport. "You don't seem like the others," she observed quietly. The young man he'd said his name was Charlie shrugged uncomfortably. "Just trying to make my way." "There are better ways," Olivia suggested. "Ways that don't involve terrifying schoolchildren." Charlie looked genuinely distressed at that. "I didn't know there'd be kids. McLaughlin just said we were hitting the bank." "Plans change," Olivia said. "But you can change too. Help me and I'll testify that you cooperated." Charlie's eyes darted to the saloon doors. "He'd kill me." "Not if we're smart," Olivia pressed. She nodded toward the back room. "Is there another way out of here?" Charlie hesitated, then nodded slightly. "Storage room has a window that opens to the alley." Outside, the standoff was escalating. McLaughlin had pressed his gun to Adam's temple, shouting increasingly violent threats. Adam remained outwardly calm, though his mind raced through scenarios, each more desperate than the last. Then, suddenly, the sound of shattering glass came from behind the saloon. Several of McLaughlin's men rushed to investigate, including the leader himself, momentarily forgetting about Adam. In that instant, Adam drove his shoulder into the remaining guard, sending them both tumbling from the porch onto the dusty street below. Though his hands were still bound, Adam managed to get to his feet first. A well-placed kick rendered the guard unconscious, and Adam rolled him over to locate a knife on his belt. Awkwardly, he began sawing at his bonds. Inside the saloon, Olivia had convinced Charlie to create a diversion by breaking bottles in the storeroom, then slipping out the window with her. Now they ran through the back alleys of Riverton, Charlie leading the way toward the schoolhouse where the children were still imprisoned. "There's 2 men guarding them," Charlie warned as they crouched behind the livery, catching their breath. "Are they loyal to McLaughlin?" Olivia asked. Charlie shook his head. "Hired guns, they'll run if things get too hot." "Then let's make things hot," Olivia said with determination. She pointed to the livery's open doors. "Can you handle a horse?" Meanwhile, Adam had freed himself and acquired his guard's pistol. He moved stealthily around the buildings, working his way toward the sheriff's office. He needed to coordinate with Collins if they were to retake the town without bloodshed. When gunfire erupted from the direction of the schoolhouse, Adam's heart nearly stopped. He sprinted toward the sound, all thoughts of caution forgotten. Rounding the corner, he was met with an astonishing sight. Olivia Palmer, the Boston-educated schoolteacher, charging down the street on horseback, leading a dozen more horses at full gallop directly toward the men guarding the schoolhouse. Behind her rode Charlie, waving his hat and whooping like a madman. The guards, faced with what appeared to be a cavalry charge, broke and ran. By the time they realized only 2 people were creating the commotion, Sheriff Collins and his deputies had emerged from the jail, drawn by the distraction. McLaughlin and his remaining men found themselves caught in a rapidly closing trap. With the sheriff's forces coming from one direction and Adam approaching from another, their position became untenable. The final confrontation occurred in the middle of Riverton's Main Street. McLaughlin, realizing he was cornered, took aim at Olivia, still mounted on her lathered horse. "Drop it." Adam's voice rang out, his own weapon trained on the outlaw leader. McLaughlin turned, a sneer twisting his scarred face. "You always did have poor timing, Rushford." "It's over," Adam said firmly. "Put the gun down and you might live to see trial." For a moment, it seemed McLaughlin might surrender. Then, with lightning speed, he swung his weapon toward Adam. 2 shots cracked almost simultaneously. McLaughlin staggered, a look of surprise crossing his features before he collapsed to the dust of Riverton's Main Street. Adam lowered his smoking pistol, his gaze immediately seeking Olivia. She had dismounted and was rushing toward him, her face pale but determined. "Are you hurt?" They asked in unison, then shared a breathless laugh of relief when both confirmed they were unharmed. As Sheriff Collins and his deputies rounded up the remaining gang members, Adam pulled Olivia into a fierce embrace, burying his face in her hair. "That was either the bravest or most foolish thing I've ever witnessed," he murmured. "I believe those qualities often go hand in hand," Olivia replied, her voice muffled against his chest. She pulled back slightly to look up at him. "Charlie helped. He's not like the others." Adam glanced to where the young man was being held with the other gang members. "I'll speak to Collins about him." "We make a good team," Olivia said softly. "The best," Adam agreed, brushing a strand of hair from her face with gentle fingers. "Though I'd prefer our future adventures be somewhat less life-threatening." "Future adventures," Olivia repeated, her heart quickening at the implication. Adam smiled, his eyes warm with promise. "I'm thinking our story is just beginning, Miss Palmer. And I intend to help write every page, if you'll allow it." In that moment, standing in the dusty street of a frontier town that had just survived an outlaw raid, Olivia knew with absolute certainty that her own story, like her protagonists, had found its true direction. Not the ending she'd struggled to write, but a new beginning entirely. "I would like that very much, Mr. Rushford," she whispered, rising on tiptoe to seal their agreement with a kiss that promised many chapters yet to come. 2 months later, Olivia stood on the platform of the Cheyenne railway station, her heart pounding with anticipation. The writer's workshop had been a tremendous success, with her story of Catherine's frontier journey drawing particular praise from Professor Matthews and the other instructors. More importantly, the Western Literary Review had agreed to publish it in 3 installments, beginning next month. Now, as the train from Riverton pulled into the station with a hiss of steam and screech of brakes, Olivia searched the disembarking passengers for the one face she longed to see. Adam had remained in Riverton to testify at the trials of McLaughlin's surviving gang members and to continue establishing himself at the Flying R. She spotted him stepping down from the second passenger car, his tall figure unmistakable even in the crowd. He wore a new suit rather than his usual ranch clothes and carried a small valise. When their eyes met across the platform, his face broke into a smile that made Olivia's heart flip in her chest. She didn't recall moving, but suddenly she was in his arms, his lips finding hers in a kiss that drew knowing smiles from passers-by. "I missed you," Adam murmured when they finally parted. "It's only been 2 weeks," Olivia teased, though she had counted every day of their separation. "2 weeks too long," he replied, offering his arm to escort her from the platform. "I want to hear everything about your workshop. Your telegram said they're publishing your story, 3 installments," Olivia confirmed proudly as they walked toward the hotel where Adam would be staying. "And Professor Matthews has asked me to consider teaching a course on frontier literature next summer. I always knew your talent would be recognized," Adam said, his voice warm with pride. "Though I confess I'm selfishly glad you'll be returning to Riverton for now." Olivia glanced up at him. "The school board was quite insistent. It seems I've become something of a local celebrity after the McLaughlin incident. The entire territory is talking about the schoolteacher who led a cavalry charge to save her students," Adam chuckled. "Though Charlie maintains he deserves at least half the credit." "How is he?" Olivia asked. Thanks to their testimony, Charlie had received a much lighter sentence than his companions, just 6 months in the territorial prison, with Sheriff Collins promising to help him find honest work afterward. "Repentant and grateful," Adam replied. "He's written twice, says he's learning carpentry from another inmate, plans to build you a new bookcase for the schoolhouse when he's released, as thanks." They reached the hotel, a grand 3-story building that was Cheyenne's pride. In the lobby, Adam checked in, then suggested they have tea in the hotel's restaurant before the evening reception the university was hosting in honor of the workshop participants. Once they were settled at a corner table, tea steaming before them, Adam reached into his vest pocket. "I have something for you." He placed a small package wrapped in brown paper on the table. Olivia opened it curiously to find a beautiful leather-bound journal, its cover tooled with an intricate design of wildflowers and prairie grass. "It's exquisite," she breathed, running her fingers over the supple leather. "Open it," Adam urged gently. Olivia did and gasped softly. The first page bore an inscription in Adam's neat handwriting, "To Olivia, who taught me that the most powerful stories are those we write together." "With all my love, Adam." She looked up to find him watching her intently, his expression a mixture of tenderness and nervous anticipation. "There's something else," he said quietly, reaching into his pocket again. This time, when his hand emerged, it held a small velvet box. Olivia's breath caught as Adam slid from his chair to kneel beside her table. Around them, other diners fell silent, watching the scene unfold. "Olivia Palmer," Adam began, his voice steady despite the emotion evident in his eyes. "When we met, you were clutching a story with an unfinished ending. That day, I promised to help write a new one, but I never imagined how completely you would rewrite mine." He opened the box, revealing a delicate gold ring set with a small but perfect diamond. "I love you, your courage, your intelligence, your stubborn determination to tell stories that matter. I want to spend the rest of my life helping you write our story, if you'll have me." Tears blurred Olivia's vision as she nodded, unable to speak past the emotion closing her throat. Adam slipped the ring onto her finger, then rose to kiss her as the restaurant erupted in applause. Later that evening, as they strolled arm in arm toward the university reception, Olivia asked, When did you know? That you loved me, I mean. Adam considered the question thoughtfully. I think it began the moment I saw you standing defiant on Main Street, refusing to let their mockery defeat you. But I knew with certainty the day we rode to the Flying R, when you looked at that land with the same appreciation I felt seeing not just what it was, but what it could become. He squeezed her hand gently. And you, when did you know? When McLaughlin had you tied to that chair, Olivia admitted. I realized then that losing you would be unbearable. Quite the romantic setting, Adam teased. Olivia laughed softly. Perhaps not, but it was honest, though I suspect I began falling for you the moment you whispered about writing a new ending. The reception was a glittering affair, with Cheyenne's literary society turning out in force to honor the workshop participants. Professor Matthews made a point of introducing Olivia to several publishers from as far away as San Francisco, all expressing interest in her unique perspective on frontier life. As the evening progressed, Adam watched proudly as Olivia captivated the gathering with her intelligence and charm. When asked about her writing process, she graciously acknowledged Adam's contribution to the authentic details of her story. My fiancé, she said, the word still new and wonderful on her tongue, helped me understand that the frontier isn't just a place, but a state of mind where people can redefine themselves beyond society's expectations. Later, as they walked back to Olivia's lodgings through Cheyenne's gas-lit streets, Adam asked about her plans for their future. Will you continue teaching after we're married? I would never ask you to give up your calling. Olivia considered the question. I think I would like to continue, at least for now, though perhaps someday, if we have children, I might focus more on writing. Whatever you choose, I'll support you, Adam promised. The Flying R is becoming profitable enough to sustain us, whatever path you decide to pursue. And what of your brother? Olivia asked. You mentioned he might join you at the ranch. Adam nodded. Daniel has finally wrapped up his business in Colorado. He'll arrive in Riverton next month, just before the wedding if all goes well. You'll like him, he's more scholarly than me, studied engineering before the frontier called him west. They reached the boarding house where Olivia was staying, pausing beneath the porch light. Adam took both her hands in his expression suddenly serious. I want you to know something, Olivia. That day in the saloon, when Jenkins and his cronies laughed at your story, they were wrong. Not just morally wrong, but factually wrong. Your writing has power, authenticity, and heart, the kind that changes minds and opens eyes. Tears pricked at Olivia's eyes at his earnestness. Thank you for believing that, even then. I didn't just believe it, Adam said softly. I knew it, just as I knew somehow that our stories were meant to intertwine. Their kiss, sweet and full of promise beneath the Wyoming stars, felt like the perfect scene in a story neither could have written alone, a collaboration of hearts that had only just begun to explore their shared narrative. 3 weeks later, Olivia stood before the mirror in Mrs. Holloway's bedroom at the Flying R, hardly recognizing the woman who gazed back at her. Her wedding gown, ordered from Denver at Adam's insistence, was far more elegant than anything she'd ever owned, ivory silk with delicate lace accents that Mrs. Holloway declared made her look like something from a Paris fashion plate. Stop fussing, the housekeeper admonished gently, adjusting the small wreath of wildflowers that crowned Olivia's upswept hair. You look beautiful, and Mr. Rushford won't care if every stitch is perfect. I'm not nervous about Adam, Olivia admitted. It's facing the whole town, after everything that happened. The McLaughlin incident had transformed Olivia's standing in Riverton dramatically. From being viewed as an oddity, the too educated, too independent schoolmarm, she had become something of a local hero. Children asked for her autograph. Parents thanked her profusely for protecting their little ones, and even Jenkins had apologized for his behavior that fateful day in the saloon. Nonsense, Mrs. Holloway declared, patting Olivia's cheek affectionately. They're honored to witness your happiness. Now come along, we can't keep the groom waiting. Downstairs, the Flying Artique's main house had been transformed for the occasion. While the ceremony would take place in Riverton's small church, Adam had insisted on hosting the celebration at the ranch. Flowers decorated every surface, tables were set up on the lawn for the feast to follow, and a small band of musicians had been brought in from Cheyenne. A knock at the door revealed Ellis, looking uncomfortable but distinguished in a new suit. "Wagon's ready, Miss Palmer," he announced, then corrected himself with a smile, for a few minutes more at least. The journey to town passed in a blur of anticipation. As their wagon approached the church, Olivia was astonished to see what appeared to be the entire population of Riverton gathered outside, many holding flowers or small gifts. "Told you so," Mrs. Holloway whispered with satisfaction as Ellis helped Olivia from the wagon. Inside the church, Adam waited at the altar, his expression transforming from nervous anticipation to awe as Olivia appeared at the doorway. Beside him stood a slightly younger man who could only be his brother Daniel, the family resemblance unmistakable despite Daniel's more scholarly appearance. With no father to give her away, Olivia had asked Ellis to do the honor, a request that had brought unexpected tears to the gruff foreman's eyes. Now, as they proceeded slowly down the aisle, Olivia saw only Adam, his face reflecting every emotion in her own heart. The ceremony itself was brief but deeply meaningful. When asked if he would take this woman as his wife, Adam's "I will" rang through the church with absolute certainty. Olivia's response was equally firm, her voice steady despite the emotion tightening her throat. When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, Adam's kiss was both tender and passionate, a promise of their future together that brought applause from the assembled guests. The celebration that followed at the Flying R lasted well into the evening. Townsfolk mingled with ranch hands, children played tag across the sprawling lawn, and the band played everything from traditional waltzes to lively folk tunes. Adam and Olivia circulated among their guests, accepting congratulations and well wishes from what seemed like half the territory. "Sheriff Collins says Charlie's being released next week," Adam murmured during a rare quiet moment. "I've offered him a position here at the ranch if he wants it." "That's wonderful," Olivia replied warmly. "I believe in second chances." "As do I," came a familiar voice from behind them. They turned to find Professor Matthews, who had made the journey from Cheyenne for the wedding. "Which is why I'm pleased to inform you that the publishers were quite impressed with your story, Mrs. Rushford. They're interested in a full novel, if you're amenable." Olivia gasped with delight. "A novel? My own book?" With a proper advance, Matthews confirmed, his eyes twinkling. "Seems your tale of Catherine's frontier journey struck a chord. They believe there's an appetite for authentic Western stories that go beyond the typical dime novel fare." Adam squeezed Olivia's hand. "I always knew it," he said proudly. As the celebration continued around them, Olivia found herself drawn to the quiet of the orchard, where apple blossoms scented the evening air. Adam found her there moments later, slipping his arms around her waist from behind. "Happy." He murmured against her hair. "Beyond words," she replied, leaning back against his chest. "Though as a writer I should probably have a more eloquent response." Adam chuckled, the sound rumbling pleasantly against her back. "Sometimes the simplest words are the most honest." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, watching as the first stars appeared in the darkening sky. "I've been thinking," Adam said eventually, "about your novel and what comes after." "Oh," Olivia turned in his arms to face him. "The house has plenty of room. What would you think about turning one into a proper writing study for you? Bookshelves, a good desk by the window overlooking the mountains." Olivia's heart swelled with love for this man who supported her ambitions so naturally. "I think that sounds perfect." "And perhaps," Adam continued, a hint of nervousness entering his voice, "someday one of the other rooms might become a nursery." Olivia smiled, reaching up to touch his face gently. "I would like that very much, though I think I'd like some time just for us first." "We have all the time in the world," Adam assured her, bending to kiss her softly. "Our story is just beginning." As twilight deepened around them, the sounds of celebration drifting from the main house, Olivia reflected on the strange twist of fate that had brought them together. A manuscript, a mockery, a chance meeting on a dusty street, and now a lifetime stretching before them, pages waiting to be filled. "Do you remember what you said to me that first day?" she asked softly. "When I told you they'd laughed at my story," Adam smiled, pressing his forehead to hers. I said I'd write a new ending. And you did, Olivia whispered, the best one I could have imagined. Not an ending, Adam corrected gently. A beginning, and we'll write the rest together one day at a time. As they rejoined their guests under the star-filled Wyoming sky, Olivia knew with absolute certainty that whatever chapters lay ahead, whatever joys and sorrows, triumphs and challenges, their shared story would be the greatest adventure of all. 5 years later, Olivia sat at her writing desk in the study Adam had created for her, making final revisions to her third novel. Outside the large window, the flying R spread before her cattle grazing in the distance, ranch hands moving purposefully about their tasks, and closer to the house, a small figure chasing butterflies through Mrs. Holloway's flower garden. Mama, Mama, look. 4-year-old Robert came racing toward the house, his chubby legs pumping with determination, a slightly crushed butterfly cupped gently in his hands. Adam followed at a more sedate pace, their 9-month-old daughter Catherine cradled in his arms. Olivia set down her pen and moved to the porch to greet her family. Robert skidded to a stop before her, carefully opening his hands to reveal his treasure. "It's beautiful, darling," she said, crouching to his level. "But remember what Daddy taught you about butterflies." Robert's face scrunched in concentration. "They need to be free to fly," he recited, "or they get sad." "That's right," Olivia nodded encouragingly. "Shall we let this one go together?" The little boy nodded solemnly, and together they released the butterfly, watching as it fluttered away on iridescent wings. Robert clapped his hands in delight before racing off to find new adventures. Adam climbed the porch steps, baby Catherine gurgling happily in his arms. "She's been watching for you from the north pasture all morning," he said, passing their daughter to Olivia. "How's the writing coming?" "Nearly finished," Olivia replied, breathing in the sweet baby scent of Catherine's downy head. "The publisher wants the manuscript by next week." "You'll make it," Adam said confidently. "You always do." The past 5 years had brought changes neither could have anticipated on their wedding day. Olivia's first novel had been an unexpected success, earning critical acclaim and healthy sales. Her second had done even better, establishing her as a respected voice in Western literature. All the while, she had continued teaching at the schoolhouse 3 days a week, only taking breaks for the births of their children. The Flying R had prospered as well. With Daniel Rushford's engineering expertise, they had implemented innovative irrigation systems that made their ranch one of the most productive in the territory. Charlie, true to his word, had become a skilled carpenter, and now served as the ranch's general foreman, his criminal past long forgotten. Wyoming itself was changing. 2 talks of statehood grew stronger each year, and women's suffrage had already been established in the territory, allowing Olivia and other women to vote in local elections. The bank approved the loan for the new breeding stock, Adam reported as they settled onto the porch swing, watching Robert chase after his released butterfly. And Daniel's designs for the new barn were accepted by the builder. "That's wonderful news," Olivia said, leaning against her husband's shoulder. "Oh, and a letter came for you from that Eastern magazine, the Atlantic Monthly. Ellis brought it when he returned from town." Olivia straightened, her heart racing. "Did you open it?" Adam shook his head, reaching into his vest pocket to produce the envelope. "Thought you'd want that honor." With slightly trembling fingers, Olivia broke the seal and unfolded the letter inside. As she read, her eyes widened. "They want to publish my essay on women's experiences in the West," she breathed. "And they're offering to commission a series of similar pieces." Adam's face split into a proud grin. "I knew they would. Your voice deserves to be heard beyond the frontier." "It's because of you," Olivia said softly. "You gave me the courage to keep writing when everyone else laughed." "No," Adam corrected gently, taking her free hand in his. "The courage was always yours. I just reminded you it was there." As the afternoon sun bathed the Flying R in golden light, Olivia reflected on the journey that had brought them here from a chance meeting on Riverton's Main Street to this life they'd built together, word by word, day by day. Little Robert had now discovered a fascinating beetle and was carefully examining it under Adam's patient guidance. Baby Catherine dozed against Olivia's shoulder, her tiny hand curled trustingly around her mother's finger. From the kitchen came the comforting sounds of Mrs. Holloway preparing the evening meal, while in the distance, ranch hands called to one another as they brought cattle in from the far pastures. It was a life neither Olivia nor Adam could have imagined that day when a mockery had led to a meeting of kindred spirits. Two stories that had intertwined to create something richer and more meaningful than either could have written alone. "What are you thinking about?" Adam asked, noticing her contemplative expression. Olivia smiled, leaning to kiss him softly. "I'm thinking that some stories don't need endings at all. They just keep unfolding, chapter after beautiful chapter." "I like that thought," Adam murmured against her lips, "and I can't wait to see what happens next." As the sun began its slow descent behind the Wyoming mountains, casting long shadows across the land they'd made their home, Olivia knew with absolute certainty that whatever pages remained to be written in their shared story, they would face them together, author and audience, dreamer and believer, each the hero of the other's tale. And in that knowledge was the most perfect ending of all, one that wasn't really an ending, but a continuing promise of all the beginnings yet to come.